Hey everybody, I'd like to welcome you to No Nodes again here, and we're going to get into the Edit Geo Node by showing you how to use the soft select tool, which is new inside of Nuke 12, to sort of bring out the three-dimensionality of the different cards that you set up in a common matte painting projection inside of Nuke. Now again, even if you don't have Nuke 12, you can still learn about the Edit Geo Node and so forth. I did a little bit of a projection setup here based on Hugo's desk tutorial. It's a really great one, and I definitely have the link at the bottom for you to check it out. Again, continue to support Hugo. He is awesome. And so again, this is not the greatest matte painting, not the greatest Photoshop file, but it is what it is, and it'll do the job. So anyway, you can download this off my website. Again, just look up the No Nodes for the Edit Geo Node. It's absolutely free. So let's go ahead and just jump in and take a look at what we got here. I have this little scene node over here to show you the setup that I have. I have a camera that is just basically animating in a scene. We have the background, we have the actual foreground mountain, and we have another mountain in the foreground here that's a little bit closer. So this one we're definitely going to want to build out the three-dimensionality of the card itself, simply because you're going to be getting a lot more parallax in this card back here, simply because we're going to be going past it. We're going to be going basically above and around it and past it. So when that happens, you want to definitely build out the geo a little bit in the form of a three-dimensional build. Now, commonly you'd have to do this sort of workflow inside of Maya or Max or Blender, but in this case we're going to go ahead and do it thanks to the new node inside of 12, or the options to do soft select. So let's just kind of break this down. I have 3 cards in the scene, and I'm just going to take this Edit Geo node here that I have, and I'm going to drop it into this first one, which is the back mountain. Okay, so I'm going to put my viewer to it and just double click it, and you can see here it is. Let me turn on my overlays, Q. And I've added a bunch of divisions in the card, which you can do here. If you go to your card, you can add a bunch of rows depending on how much of a big change that you want as far as the little details and so forth. So you can increase these individually. Okay, so what I have here is the Edit Geo, and you'll see a couple options up here. I already have this enabled, soft select. You can turn this off and on. Again, this is only going to be in Nuke 12. So you can turn this off and on, and you want to select things based on, you can do node selection, you can do vertex selection, so I can go ahead and select a vertex. Again, you can go to face selection, like that. And you can go to object selection, which is just the object in general here. So, and then you also have disable occlusion testing, which we're going to get over in a minute here. So I'm going to go back to vertex selection and come in here, and you'll see if I have the soft select enabled, I can grab something, and now I have sort of like this fall off when I pull this object here. Now, again, if you turn this off, you're just going to be selecting points. And if you want to select things based on different options, you have the rectangle select, which allows you to select this much here. You can see I'm not getting any fall off because I don't have the soft select on. And then you also have ellipse like this. You can grab basically from an ellipse, or my favorite, which is the lasso select, like this. So what I can do is I can kind of start by lasso selecting the interior of the mountain. Actually, let's try about this much here, because we could see that it actually kind of has this ridge here and it kind of extends out. So again, you can also hold down Shift and grab more of a selection if you wish, like that. And again, as you can see, as I pull this out, it's a pretty rough pullout, so I want to definitely enable my soft select. And the soft select, as you can see, is being translated here by this fall off from the color to black right here. So to see the actual fall off and adjust the fall off, you can hit the letter S while your cursor here is in the viewer. And that'll bring up your 3D node view, and you're going to go to your 3D tab, and down here you have what's called the S shape. So let me just kind of pull this up here a little bit. And you have basically an F shape that you can change the fall off of this whole thing. So if I come over here, you can see if I could pull this up, the fall off is more intense from the beginning, and then has a very sharp fall off here. You can add points if you want to. So for instance, you can come over here, hold down Shift and Control. I'm sorry, I'm using a weird Mac option here. And you can make little, there you go, sorry, Shift and Alt. I'm using a Mac keyboard here. So you can see how I can kind of make any kind of adjustment to the general fall off as I go here, or you can just hit delete and get that out of here. And then you can come over here and take this interpolation here and put it to horizontal. So then you get a nice horizontal fall off. You have this nice thing called the fall off radius. So again, just kind of take this. You can see I can take the fall off, increase it until it kind of comes out to the edge like that. Now, once that's figured out, I can come in here and just start to pull this out like so. Now again, if that's not too much, if it's too weird for you, like you're trying to get a better fall off on that, then you can come in here, and let me just take this here, and start to adjust this a little bit. So again, I could probably come in here and holding down Control by grabbing this handle, I could start decreasing the fall off, something weird like this. And now when I come back up here and pull out, I might get a little bit better of a fall off, maybe just a little bit. And again, you can come in here with this same fall off option and just make iterations here and just sort of move this in slowly. So now I'm actually building the ridge that you see here. So again, I can keep pulling this out. You know, this is heavily distorted. And again, I could adjust my fall offs if I want. Again, you can grab little pieces like this and pull those out. I'm just pushing them forward. I'm not pushing them in any way here. And if you go around the object, that's when you're going to start to see this distortion. But if you kind of look from a forward viewpoint, you won't have that. Now, if you go to your Edit Geo Node here, and you can see under Display, it's set to Unchanged. You can do Off. You can choose Wireframe. You can choose Solid. You can choose Solid and Wired. This is in Display, meaning when you're seeing in Display option. So if I have Display set to Textured, and I don't have this selected, and I go back up here to like a node-based thing and turn off, I can kind of get an idea as far as the work that I've done. Now, obviously, I did some pretty sloppy work here, but I'm building up a ridge, and there's a three-dimensional reality to this. Now, if I put my viewer to this scene node here, look to my camera, lock to my camera, and just scrub, it may not look like it, but there is a little bit of a parallax introduction in here to this object. It's very subtle, but it does feel a little bit like things are, you're moving towards things. There's more of a three-dimensionality, depending, of course, on your lens, too, if you have a very long lens. This is a 35mm lens. But it's starting to feel a little bit more real here. So I'm going to unlock from my camera, go back to default here. And let's start to work on this guy up here. So again, I'll do it again. I'll do another Edit Geo Node. And I'll throw it on this guy. And again, make sure you get enough divisions in the card. And this is the one that's going to matter because you can see the camera is going to move right past it. So again, I'll just come back over here and I'll make sure my soft select is on. I will come over here, and this time let's go with faces. Why not? And I can come in here and grab the faces, and now you can see the fall off, right? And I can start to pull that forward, and I'll just grab this right here and grab that forward. Again, you can adjust the fall off right here by, again, hitting S in your viewer, coming down here while this is still selected, and take your fall off radius and decrease it and increase it. So you can actually take this pretty low and then grab like these edges and then start to pull them back if you wish. Okay, so it's totally up to you. Again, there's a warpage going on here, but it depends on if the camera starts to look sort of like perpendicular to the projection direction that you'll start to see those warpages. Otherwise, you probably won't see them. And again, it's always good to turn off or just take these edit geos and hide them. And just get back to some node select here and see if I can make sure I'm not selecting nothing. There we go. And then I'll switch the camera, lock to the camera, and I can just play it through. So now we're getting a feel of you just kind of look at it, you can see it doesn't feel right to a certain degree because it almost looks like it's a potato chip folding back here. And it doesn't feel right. But this area is starting to feel like we're moving past sort of like this ridge here. So again, this is just a matter of you coming in and making adjustments. So you come in here and take this object, so disable from looking at camera, fold it around. You can see what's happening. We just have a general flatness on this end. So again, I can come over to my, and you can disable, the beauty of these edit geo nodes, you can do multiple edit geo nodes if you wish. And then when you render, we're going to talk about this in a minute here. If I come over here and I grab, say, if I start to grab some faces, so if I come over here, and these icons are always so small, I'll go to my lasso tool. You can see I will select this here and choose vertices, right? So if I select these vertices, from this angle, I'm not selecting any vertices on the other side. So if you come over here and choose disable occlusion testing, and I come over here, I can now grab the vertices on the opposite side. You can see how it goes from transparent, where we can see the points on the other side, to with occlusion on, we don't see it. We only see the ones that are facing towards us. So again, you can come over here, you can make adjustments, and then if you really want to get picky, you could start to pull back the points that obviously need to move in and so forth here. And again, you can come from this perspective and do something like this, and hit S for settings while you're a viewer, and then come over here to your radius and just start to grab that in there, and then you can start pulling this information back. See, I'm just trying to get that, trying to stretch this information out. There we go. And then again, in order for you to kind of, you just want to click X and come up here and make sure you're in node view so that you can kind of see how it looks as you kind of look through it. Sometimes this warpage can get a little out of hand. Of course, that's because you should definitely not do this when you're that close to the camera. It still feels weird, but it does definitely is just an example for you to see how you can start to get some parallax in there. Okay, so a couple other things about the Edit Geo node is you have this option here under the transform. You can also set keys, so you see how keys. Now these keys will only affect it if you actually, like for instance, let's go ahead and I'll just make an Edit Geo node, and we'll go all the way to the back here. So let me just pull this back, and I have just a single face here for this. But if I were to come in here and turn off my soft select for one thing, and come over here to my vertices, I can grab this vertex here, and I can animate it. So at the frame 1, I can click this, and then at frame 10, I could move that over like that, and I have a keyframe. See that? It's only affecting the actual points that I have. Now this can be done with soft select too, that if you have soft select selected and you select a bunch of points and you take it and then you move it, sometimes you have to do that for matte matching for objects in the real world. So, you know, if you're trying to create some sort of holdout mask for some object in the background, this will definitely help all this options. You can see the keyframes, and I can go ahead and delete the keyframes. So I'll go here and delete the keyframe there. You could also just do reset geometry. And then when it comes to, you know, if I'm grabbing like these points here, let me go back to my options here. If I grab these points here, you can see that I'm kind of in world space, or in this case object space, but I can also, if I want, switch this to a different mode. So if I come over here, sorry, I keep getting the wrong node here. And if I switch this to average normals, it's going to take the average normals. Like if I put this like right here, you could see that it's kind of facing in this sort of direction. So now I can actually move according to the normals, which sometimes can be helpful here. So you can see I can start to pull back this. This is getting a lot of hand, and I should have probably used larger macro-sized workflows, but you can see how it's a little bit too rigid here. The ability to like soften this would be very nice. So we're just getting like average vertices or whatever. So anyway, with that said, I think we are good to finally do a render now. So what I have here, if you guys are a little bit confused, is I have a C node that just keeps this C node specific. Let's make sure I got it here. This C node, what was all this? Is put into a scanline render, and all it's doing is rendering the background, as you can see here. Right, camera movement. And then this one has the mountains with an alpha channel. It's also important to note that this is actually pushing out depth information as well. Same thing with this scanline render. And of course, when we merge these two together, let's see, Yeah, so merging these two together, we're getting a depth channel that is incorrect. So we'll talk about that in a minute here. But anyway, so I got this, and then I got this merge node here, and I basically separate them so I can get a light wrap. So I made a light wrap here and plussed it over. That way, you know, obviously this brightness behind would actually sort of create a light wrap. It's all very rough and junky here, so please don't judge me on this. So anyway, it's just basically a light wrap, and then I use a ZD focus. Now I just realized that checking these things, you come to this node here, and I go to my depth node. You can see that the depth information is not correct. Okay, so what I have to do is do a shuffle node. So I'll do a shuffle copy node like that. And I want to bring in the depth information on here. So what I'll do is I'll set this to the depth information and grab the depth, steal the depth information from 1. There we go. So now if I go to my shuffle node here and I take a look at my depth node, and I think that's not right. Let's see if it's this one right here. There we go. Yeah. So it went to the A side, got the override here. And again, these merge nodes, when you merge these things together, you could see it says, you know, what bias and which different version you can switch over ranges from and so forth. And but I'm not going to get into that right now. So I wanted to save this information here, and then I go to my ZD focus node. And let's go ahead and take a look at that. So I'll go back to my RGB, and now you can see if I turn this off and on, I have ZD focus, but in this case, I am going to focus, come over here and take this focal distance and put it back here. So that way the foreground mountain is out of focus, background mountain is in focus, and that's what we get. Of course, this stays the same because they're pretty much close to the same thing. So anyway, with that said, that's it. That's for the field. Then I added some grain, and then I did a nice cinematic widescreen crop, so you can see. So the only other thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that you can actually use these edit Geo nodes to do object-based translation. So in this case, what I want to do, and I'll just pop out of the viewer here, is take a look at this, and I'm going to take the scale and maybe add a 0.2 on this, like that. And then I'm just going to put my viewer into this scene node, look through my camera. All right. And I'm also going to hide all these and deselect them. I'm going to make sure, always make sure that you're in your node selection and deselect so that you can just see things. So I can go ahead and see my actual frame. I can scrub this like this. There we go. So it's looking good. And I'm going to take this edit Geo node because I've scaled this just a little bit in the X direction. And you can come over here to the actual edit Geo node, and under transform you have this option to actually just transform the object. So what I'll do is I'll probably just move it like right there, set a keyframe at the beginning. So I'll just move like that, and maybe do a 0.0 lasso grab and use my up and down middle mouse scroll wheel. And I'll set a key, and then the last frame, I'll just move it over just a little bit. Now you can see we got a little bit of animation going there. So that's pretty much it for the edit Geo node. The only other thing is, like under rendering, you do have this option here that if you know, when you render this out, if I put my scanline render to this and I view it, you can see here's the mountains. But if my scanline render view for, let's see here, go back to my edit Geo node here. And each one of these individually, you can see for render, we can say off, right? We can say wireframe, right? So you can physically render the wireframe. You can do solid in wireframe. You could do textured in wireframe, so you could physically see that if you need to, or you leave unchanged, it'll look for whatever was last down the pipe. So in this case, we're good. That's pretty much it as far as the edit Geo node. I think I've covered it all. So let's go ahead and just take a look at the final product. All right, so there we go, and obviously there's a couple things that, this whole thing looks real fake. It looks macro photography. There's a little bit too much shallow depth of field on here maybe. It still feels, the parallax, you can feel it, but it does feel a little strange. It does feel like the lip kind of like curls back, so obviously there's work there. The clouds are moving too quick. They look fake, and there's banding, and again, this light wrap isn't the greatest, and moving towards these mountains is moving too quick. And again, this is all stuff that you know from watching photography. Like, if you were to look at this, like, why are we moving so close to a humongous mountain, yet we're barely moving past this rock in front of us? So again, you could see how the distances of where these objects need to be. This needs to be further back. This needs to be maybe a little bit further back. We're a little too close to it. Clouds don't need to be moving. The perspective and direction looking up at the clouds don't make any sense. It just feels very empty, and of course there's banding, and it's just, you know, it's good stuff to learn from. Learn from these, just this hack job. My whole point of this is to just show you guys the Edit Geo Node, and I hope you enjoyed it. And who knows, just go ahead and fix it and make it your own. Also, check out Hugo's tutorial on setup. Way better than what I'm doing here, but anyway, it's definitely something to check out. See you later.